name is Annie Folger. I'm the Executive Director of the Midpeninsula Community Media Center located in Palo Alto. And I'm very excited about this session. My co-conspirator here, Geoff, Boyle, and I are very anxious to get your input on an idea we have for creating a new level of community dialogue by linking together community media centers around the Greater Bay Area. So I'd like Geoff to be able to introduce himself, and then I'd like to hear from each of you who you are, and then we can get started.
Okay, my name is Geoff Boyle. I've worked as a facilitator for a very long time. And what I'm interested in, have always been interested in, is how you can begin to engage community through the use of what, of course, I started out with small groups, writing up on the wall, things like that, still useful. But I'm just intrigued with what happens when you include HD television and the quality it allows you to produce in terms of script, writing, pictures. It simply was not possible in the old television, which was basically geared to watching somebody's face, or movement, or something, or movie, or whatever. And the outreach through the internet, social media, all of these things that can contribute to a community coming together and really beginning to think together rather deeply, rather than just my opinion is my opinion is my opinion is, but really beginning. And we'll talk about some examples we have of things that have been done without much engagement with television, certainly not with engagement from the media centers. But I'm very intrigued how all of that could fit together. Actually, one of the very first things I ever heard about, I don't think I've told you, was one that went on up in Seattle in the early 70s that was part of the whole Earth Day. What can we do? What's involved? And engaged a very large number of people in the Seattle region. It was run over one of the major television stations, King Network. Yeah, in Seattle. So it's been around, it's been done, but not with what we have today, and I'm intrigued what we can do here in the Bay Area.
So could you each introduce yourselves and say which center you're from and anything else you'd like to say? That would be you, Paul.
That would be me. I'm sorry, I was gazing at this. In case you didn't notice. Paul Congo, I'm from Monterey, and I seem to have a terminal location in the access world. I've been here since 74, I think. I just realized this morning, Elliot. Oh my God, Elliot and I started about the same time. But anyway, louder.
What you could address is what kinds of things are you doing in Monterey that contribute to citizen engagement and dealing with meeting local issues?
Well, I was leading to that, which was very quickly. In Monterey, not as much as I'd like to, which is one reason I'm here. And it's very much embedded in our mission and desire. And I've always looked for the mechanisms to do that, and not only locally, but regionally. And back in the days when I did starting in the 70s, I was lucky enough to have a fellowship with the Ford Foundation. And part of that was to build on the model of what sounds like the same thing. We were using television. We were using what was then the community media, but it's pre-community media. But we used portable video cameras and recorders that would weigh about 30 pounds. And we would go to, say, someone who suffered from black lung in a community in Kentucky, and we would take them about their problems with health care, and why they weren't being supported by the social institutions. We'd take it to another place, get their response, build that dialogue, take it to another place, and then eventually loop it back around to where it all started. So I think we're talking about something very similar. At that time, just having a television camera was enough because everybody in the world didn't have it. Now we're talking about not using technology again, and the latest breaking things using instantaneous communication across the internet and high definition. Sounds like we're applying the same principles, and you feel very exciting.
Very good, thank you.
Hello, I'm Aaron Wheeler. I'm with Passive Media, sorry, not there. And so we're having going through a lot of different things in Passive Media. So I'm going from working into the community or client, customer community relations part. But anyway, I guess I'd rather continue to go forward and see where ideas can come out. I know there's some things we're doing when it comes to community engagement, but I don't want to take over too much.
Well, Aaron, I'm really glad you're here because what we really want to do is build a model that can be used in Southern California as well as Northern California. So you can be first. Thank you.
My name is Karen Adams. I'm the production manager, staff producer at the Media Center in Palo Alto. So really excited to support Annie, my boss, in this new venture. And I think it's really critical that we come together and act regionally, if not nationally, as a unit to just be more effective, especially where political or social policy is concerned.
I'm Becky Saunders. I also work for Annie at the Media Center in Palo Alto, but I'm very passionate about this topic because I think there's so much fragmentation in our society, and we have this great opportunity of our network of community access centers, and if somehow they could be pointed in the same direction and bring people in to share a common vision or some goals, I think it could be incredible community organizing tool. So I'm very excited about possibilities.
My name is Brian Marciano. I don't work for Annie. I work over at Contra Costa Television and Martinez. We do government access, and we're actually here. We've taken over just leaving the lights on public access, and we want to learn how to run an access center. There are no access centers in Contra Costa.
Take that a little further, to try to tie in engagement. Whether it's a new application for the use of public access that has been dormant, and now an educational access channel that we've been, gifted. And so it's really a component of overall tag policy development within our community. And so I think an engagement need we have right now is, hey, we've got these channels, help us decide what to do with them. And it's going to have to drive the political will of the city councils working with us, where some are way ahead of others and others are completely in the dark, and help them all kind of, again, move in the same direction, common purpose, shared vision. And so whether it's talking about the channels or talking about another common goal where these tools simply are used.
So you're a Contra Costa as well?
Yeah, we're county government, and we are managing the channels right now. We don't see that as a long-term plan, but we, like Brian alluded to, we kept the lights on when Comcast closed the doors, and that's why public access is virtually dormant, because it was managed by Comcast. And the educational channel just suffered from a lack of organizational support, ease of use, and a growing vision that really wasn't there, because they were seeing it as a delivery system for telecourses, and of course that all went online. So anyway, I think I've said enough. Thanks.
So thank you. And another question then is this kind of programming we're going to be talking about best suited for the P channel, the E channel, or the G channel?
Right.
And where would you put it?
It depends on what the topic of the day is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because and we play matchmaker all the time.
Right.
Somebody has a message intent, and we might have a department that has a similar intent.
So did everyone get one of these worksheets?
Yes.
Yeah. So Bay Voice is the name that I've given to this vision of, and I've got the vision statement here. So I was thinking that a good way for us to start off is to take this vision, which is linking media centers together to engage citizens in a meaningful dialogue about our shared future, develop a regional dialogue model that provides a collective voice to make it possible for our elected leaders to do the things that need to be done to address the challenges that we face. So what I wanted to do is we've broken this down into small boxes, and I want to just kind of go over the salient points about each of those. And I thought what you could do, if you'd allow me to just ramble through this quickly, is to kind of think about the questions that you have, the things that come up for you as I touch on these different areas, the concerns, what are we missing, what doesn't feel right, if you were to be involved in this, what would you need in order to be involved in terms of funding and staffing and other support. Those are the kinds of things. So I'd like to run over the elements of the vision and then really throw it open to discuss each of those to make it work. So in that first box, linking media centers, think about where we are now. We are not linked together. We are independent community media centers, each of us with our own set of challenges and political situations and life of franchises, etc. We all have challenges, and many of them are in the financial arena. And so part of my impetus in bringing this vision together is realizing that we need to create a relevant new role for ourselves in order to survive, in order to have a role that is clearly valuable to our community, such that if the plug gets pulled completely in one way or another, the community is going to be there to say, no, we can't do without this. This is part of our being part of the democracy. So that's where I'm coming from. So one of the elements in linking, obviously, is Comcast, or whoever your carrier is. So many of the media centers around the Bay Area are Comcast. And so one of the questions here is, how do we convince Comcast to interconnect us? I talked to Sue Buskey, and she said it's not rocket science. It's a little bit of engineering, or, there are two major hubs that serve the entire Bay Area. And she said it's not asking for, divine intervention. It's something that they could easily do for us if they have the political will to do it. So there are other solutions we can employ, but that would be the obvious, easy one. And you'll see some of the other elements of the vision may give them the reason to help us do this, and may also help them as well. So engaging citizens. Where we come from is we're all about empowering public speech and building community. We've been doing this for decades now. We now have a whole new level of social media, which will allow us to make our medium interactive. So the whole idea here is to build a new level of engagement that makes our one-way out TV signal become interactive, so that we can receive feedback, so that we can receive input. I've talked with Excita, for example, which is a social media aggregator, and they have sold services to NBC, for example. So they are in the business of aggregating instantaneous feedback on polling questions that NBC puts out on their channel, so they can receive Facebook and tweets and other things, and put them all together and spill them out as one number, and also break them down so you can see what's coming from where. But some technology like that could help us reach many generations of people who use those technologies to engage them in part of this dialogue. I think would really be intriguing. So the question here is, what resources do you need to do the outreach to get people involved in this process? So that's something that we can also talk about. So the next box, meaningful dialogue. The idea here is for us to be aware of the great platform of resources that we currently have, and to offer that platform to the many organizations around locally, regionally, and nationally that provide dialogue facilitation. There are a number of organizations such as America Speaks, the Bipartisan Policy Center. There's a group called Civil Conversations Project. What we want to do is build an RFP that has all of these ingredients in our vision that we want to meet, and offer our platform of a Bay Area and ultimately Bay Area-wide live broadcast, cablecast, community channel, for them to test out how they can apply their dialogue model to this wider audience. You know, America Speaks comes into town, they get hired by somebody to run a dialogue process. They rent a ballroom in a hotel. They spend weeks lining up groups of people to get people to come to sit at these tables of 8 so that they can run this day-long dialogue process. So this, you know, what we're offering is a different model. It's a platform that would enable them to not have to rent the hotel, and would, you know, and there's a way that we could work with the community groups and churches, et cetera, to get people to watch instead of be in the building. So that's kind of another element, and it's capitalizing on the resources, the platform that we have to offer, and asking others to partner with us to make something grand for our community. The next box, focused on our shared future. I think it's pretty obvious that our current political system is not working very effectively. And I think we also all agree that we have problems that need to be solved. It's very key. I'm convinced that we, as far as systems, how systems work, our democracy is kind of at the limits of how it can function in its current form. And I think what is required is the push of public pressure, but I'm not advocating taking to the streets. I'm advocating that we come up with a very civil dialogue process in which we can make the promise, your voice will be heard. We are going to get input from every possible source. We are going to build a process that invites your voice to be heard, and we're not going to do knee-jerk opinion polls and find out what your opinion is and entrench you in that. We want to go through a process whereby you can be educated and involved and make decisions based on the needs of yourself and your neighbor and the other people around the Bay Area. So we begin to have this larger sense of who we are, and we begin to have a sense of our power as citizens to drive our democracy into action and to get our leaders to take us where, you know, to solve the problems that we have. I really feel that in terms of a new relevant role, this is key. You know, if our communities see us playing a vital role, not only just in our own neighborhoods, but across the region, in helping to identify some of these regional issues that affect all of us, that our future will be assured as part of the solution. So in terms of the regional dialogue model, I'm thinking issues here. They are local to global. In Palo Alto right now, if you pick up the newspaper, the headlines are all about how hard it is to park in downtown Palo Alto. So parking is a part of a larger problem. And there's the Plan Bay area now, which is, they're looking, you know, the ABAG and the other government agencies are trying to get people to buy into, and it's all about affordable housing, it's all about building on the transportation corridors, it's about transportation issues and the freeways. All these things impinge on one another. So if we can begin, again, a regional dialogue process that addresses the things where we know there's overlap, where Palo Alto cannot solve it all by themselves. We need to, you know, expand the dialogue and hear how they're dealing with similar things in Contra Costa, in Monterey, and other places. Next box is collective voice. I think part of this is to imagine multiple rounds of this process of engaging, educating, and expressing on these local issues. We don't know what our collective voice is as a regional culture. So questions here are, how much of this process goes on TV? Is it all live on TV? Is some of it in the hotel room? I know it's ballroom, I don't know. We need to figure that out. We really need to look at the logistics, and I'm thinking initially we'll probably start with maybe the media center being the initiator of a pilot round, and maybe just involve one or two other media centers just to roll it out, make sure that it works, test all with Comcast and et cetera, so those logistics can then grow. And again, the whole, how we integrate the input, the feedback, the social media, those different things, making sure that we can fulfill this promise that your voice will be heard in this process. So we've got 3 more blocks to go here. To make it possible for our elected leaders, what's the best way to involve our leaders? Do we want them directly involved? Do we want them in the room? Do we want them speaking? Or do we want them witnessing? They're depending on the issue and the levels and so on. These are all questions that we need to explore and really think through. I don't want to create yet another platform for politicians to speak and then, I want it to be the other way. But again, it's these dialogue facilitators who can help us create that. I do know that we definitely want to have links in all of our broadcasts so that people who are motivated can connect with whoever their elected officials are to let them know that they do care. So the second last box there, to do the things that need to be done. I'm convinced that with broad citizen engagement and education and interaction, our leaders will be prompted at some level to act. I think that when it's completely obvious that there is a groundswell, it would be pretty hard for anybody to ignore that this is the way to go, this is what people want, and it makes it a lot easier for them then to make the decisions at the city hall or at the state level or regional level or wherever it is. And the final box, to address the challenges that we face, this whole Bay Voice initiative coming from our media center in Palo Alto, what we're willing to do is, first of all, to identify the needs of the community media centers who would be willing and interested in participating, to secure the funding in order for that to happen, to develop the RFP, to go out to these community facilitation groups, and to host the initial rounds, as I mentioned. I would love for this to be the Bay Area's legacy to the community media centers around the country. That, here's a way for us to link together, even if they're across the state, there are some state level issues that would benefit from having this level of citizen up wisdom being delivered to our elected officials. And my board is very excited about this idea. I've talked to a few people who feel that there are some definite funding possibilities given the lack of journalistic endeavors that are going on in the world these days, that this is will fill a niche that will, help educate and involve voters to make good choices and to be more part of the process. So the questions here then overall are, what do you need? What would your center need? What would your board need in order for you? What would you need in order to be interested in participating? And and any other comments you have about what's missing or what other things that we need to.
The obvious thing is building, which means resources, which means money, I assume. certainly at least offsetting funds to handling direct costs we have for our time and staff time and so forth, and the real costs we have. On the level of the content, we would want it so badly, that's all we would need. But I'm pretty much in a position, particularly with Ithaca and other things coming down with them, that my board's saying that we can't subsidize anything anymore. Someone's got to pay for it. We don't have the option of cherry picking projects because we have to fulfill what we're doing and focus on our discretionary projects that have funding base. Not necessarily for profit, but we have to pay the real costs, which would mean salaries, overhead, electricity, whatever. So I'm having to really deep in terms of my accounting to do that. So yeah, we have to have the resources. With the resources, that would be in 1,000%. And one other thing I want to say is this is exactly the type of stuff that, particularly the city of Monterey, would want to do. It was very proactive, very on the level of citizen engagement, very progressive. Other cities talk it, Monterey lives it. And the other cities in my area would be interested, but they would say, okay, as long as you put their city council in it. Whereas if I took this to the city of Monterey, they'd say, yay, please do that.
It is encouraging.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul.
And tell us, what cities, how are you funded? Like, we know nothing, I mean, because it never has existed. I mean, the government's existed, but there's been public access and Comcast ran it, and we're just trying to start it. And some of the cities are kind of interested. Some cities wish we would not even be speaking to them about it. Like, so what, you're Palo Alto, East Palo?
Palo Alto, Menlo Park, Atherton, and Stanford.
And how were those cities chosen?
They banded together to form a joint powers to do franchise negotiations as a unit.
Right,
Yeah.
why not, for Boyle Valley,
Yeah.
that's what, because maybe that's what Chris knows more than me, we have some cities, maybe we just gotta pick 3 or 4 that are interested, and then how are you funded? Could you have like a staff, or you have, who's running the place, everyone's here today?
Yeah. Yeah,
Good people.
we have 6 full-time people, we own our own building.
Okay.
Yeah, we get a pass-through fee
Right.
from the cable subscriber. We are in a very sweet position.
Sure,
We
yeah.
are. And that's one of the reasons why my board is in favor, we don't have any extra money in
Right.
our operating budget either, but they think that this is a totally fundable initiative.
And then how long has it existed in Palo Alto?
23 years
Right,
in operation.
and then, because we don't even, board, we don't even know what a board is.
The Board of Supervisors.
Yeah.
Actually, and as far as what we would need, would be a compelling mission for the Board of Supervisors to get on. We can drive the action from the county level. We can't speak for the cities. So the Board of Supervisors has a compelling reason to get on board with this. Some of the cities might come along. So, yeah, I understand that any issue, even Plan Bay Area, for example, is not universally embraced, which is a little frustrating, because we actually participate, we tape some of the meetings, and here we saw this group kind of stand up and try to take over the thing. Fascinating. So, yeah, obviously the engagement would have to allow for all voices, and so there's no single voice.
Right. And Bay Voice would be pitched as a transpartisan, no agenda dialogue process.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
platform, I think, was the key word
Yeah.
there. And that's how I've been seeing
Yeah.
our growth as establishing, is this platform of channels for eligible users
Right.
and eligible content.
Yes.
So are y'all on the payroll of the county?
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
So you're currently running a government meeting channel?
Correct, and then we also picked this.
More than meetings, but yeah.
Yeah, and then we picked up, we're doing,
It was 2 government channels and 2 sub-regional public access channels, and then a countywide educational channel.
trying, well, there's, I have so many different things right in my head.
Start with one.
Okay, start with one. Okay, well, it's either you can go, it's either two ways, in my mind, and I understand. When people start talking about funding, they always think about the hard base, almost like the hub. We have this hub entity, and then everyone's just sort of like the satellite state studio and staff, and all the hub information goes into here. Is that sort of what you're perceiving, or are you literally thinking, or literally talking about almost a virtual hub where you have satellite studios, satellite voices that come and contribute into a voice box, I guess. I'm trying to visualize it. Because it's like, it's a hardcore building, or is just a virtual think tank.
No, so this would be using our channels to have the major portion of this dialogue be a transparent, visible, available to the community to participate process.
Okay, so
And there would be the opportunity, say for example, we're dealing with water issues, and Contra Costa supervisors are really concerned about the health of the Delta. So maybe they've got you working on some video piece about the Delta, and that could be then shown on all of our channels, preceding a dialogue about, the water for the bay, or I'm just kind of making things up here. But what I want to do is find a way that we can all kind of add value to the process by the things that we're already doing. I know they're doing great stuff in Monterey.
The art sanctuary piece is that coming out of Monterey? Yeah.
So, if we had an environmental issue, depending on what the issues are, stations would be able to contribute programming that their producers or,
And we're getting that, basically, with that program, that we're getting those things contact around the country that we're now plugging into your section radio TV.
Right.
So when you have a good idea, it does grow organically in that way, and now we get to figure out to manage it. But yeah.
But I think the mechanism, Aaron, I think that's what, Annie, we need to kind of actually talk about and fantasize about. Is what is the mechanism by which, say you did show the Delta piece, and then would everyone go live and would be able to go back and forth, or then, and then maybe put up a slate and then everybody talk and dialogue in their region, and then come right back and
sure, it's a digital town hall meeting.
Exactly.
So because in a smaller version of what we're doing in Pasadena this year is that usually our public access company would do the state of the city meeting. Right?
Yeah.
But this year, it's being distributed out to some of the students at Pasadena City College doing some shooting for the public access. We're doing some. I know, and plus we're also doing the government, and then K-Learn's also going to distribute some stuff, which is the education, we have two education, one college, one school district. And then from there, they collect it for that one event, which is a full-on community event, state of the city event. So it sounds like it's a content aggregation of a particular nature, particular subject that you guys work together. So it's like, to me, it is the funding aspect of it. I don't know how quick you can pick up funding. So other than you having the Delta, that's a big funding aspect. As you say, a project that you can get funding for, and then you all work on it. And but in all these things, it's just, now it just goes down, okay, you have your project, you know that you all want to work together in some aspect for this particular project. Now it's just managing the communication devices, as in, from the beginning of the presentation to the end of it. So there's such a project that's going on, the project, there's a problem, right?
Yeah.
And the town hall wants to say something about it, we're all gonna work together. And and to present it forward, first you create the dialogue by saying there is a problem. You do it through social media. You do it through, you identify what the problem is, and you do it in these different aspects. PSAs, social media. You put out, you create a Facebook for it, Facebook page, and then you get created, you Twitter. This is what's going on in this particular situation, and this is the update. And this, in 2 weeks, we're going to have a town hall digital meeting, which you're using Google Hangout,
That's
and
right.
you're using, Twitter as someone's twittering, and so you have people Facebooking their questions. You have, and you can, so you're going through this process where you're getting into the big picture, where you're just getting everyone to communicate in quality, and then you just have somebody who, sort of facilitates it in a manner where it is meaningful dialogue. Right? Meaningful dialogue that you're able to have that sort of that one host that pushes everything together. Then at the end of that, when you're done with that, then you put together a press release or within the Facebook or anything else of this is the ideas we came up with. How do you get the executives and board members and states and whoever, blah, 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 the dignitaries together, is either they can be a part of it and say, these are questions that they have dialogue. Just they're going to have questions about the situation, and you're able to answer those questions. Or they're invited to the town hall meeting. Or they're invited to comment on the questions and things that were developed at the end of what, sort of like a, so you're almost sort of becoming the grand jury investigator. Anybody know about the
Civil grand jury?
Yeah, civil grand jury. You guys become the investigators of the situation, and then you allow them to hear the voice of, and then they be able to react to that. And so that sort of ends that particular project. And then you take that same model and you just plug in a new project. And then if you do that on something that's, every 3 months or, quarterly or something like that, then that would get people reared up going, okay, guess what? The town hall meeting's gonna happen. And they're, so you get into sort of gearing up of all projects.
This almost sounds like something that a Bay Area broadcaster or newspaper would want to kind of own, be the platform, be the facilitator. They do this Saturday question, letter to the editor. What do you think we should do about the healthcare web problem?
They do that, Chris, but the thing is, they go for the quick pulse. They don't really engage people. They don't have any kind of educational process. They don't lay out the issues. They don't give anybody an opportunity to say, hey, wait a minute, my voice isn't in there. That's what the Democrats said. That's what the Republicans said. What about me? What about my church or my ethnic group or whatever it is? It's not a true dialogue process. Geoff can speak to this. In true dialogue process, you begin to investigate. After you hear everybody's concerns, you begin to build a sense of common ground. And it just happens automatically where you can all of a sudden feel for the other person because you can hear, he cares about his kids and so do I, and these are the ways that this is showing up in our lives. And so and then once that is out in public view, that's when creative solutions can arise. What you have is a this or that,
You don't create a debating situation.
Yeah.
You don't create a debating situation where everyone gets a chance to have their voice heard. Is the pre-event.
Exactly.
It's the pre-event through emails and all this stuff and forums. Create a social media. That all that information. It only gets gathered now. Having a news person, they host. That's all they do. As long as they're so-and-so from so-and-so is hosting, and they get to be a moderator instead of a person who drives the dialogue. They're not going to drive the dialogue. And you don't want them to drive the dialogue. You just want them to be a figure so it makes it legitimate. Right? Right?
Yeah. At the same time, I would want the papers
Well, that's what I'm saying.
to know about it. I would definitely want, I would want them to invite,
And
let
that's the
them
gear
know
up,
what's
you're
going
gearing
on.
them up.
And build, and just all of our community organizations that we work with, to let them know. We want people to know that this is happening. And it's not just gonna be an hour-long town meeting. It's gonna be a process that takes, several iterations. And I'm hoping Karen has got the wheels turning here. There are just different ways that we can accomplish that, whether it's the media center in Palo Alto being the main host, and then we switch off, and, then in Mountain View or in San Jose, maybe we've got another gathering of people, and we have dialogue back and
Or
forth.
you go through each city,
Yeah.
each city
Yeah,
and
exactly.
say, what's going on in your city that you want to talk about this particular, this project? And so you go to different places, you're using the same thing, and you have a person who's able to initiate, facilitate the same thing, but you get to share the projects. What's going on in your problem, what's your problem in one place?
What I think is unique about this model is that you have all these cities having dialogue at government meetings, but there's no mechanism right now to have a regional dialogue and to have all these different communities speaking at the same time. And that's really, that's beautiful.
Is that a function of ABAG or?
And ABAG, that was going to bring them up, yeah. So there are government entities that are regional, like Association of Bay Area Governments, and, maybe.
Frankly, that would be an easy partnership for us to offer.
Yeah, and I am already working with somebody who's, and there is a natural partnership there, but they're the ones we want to hear what we have to say, right? That's a congregation of government officials who need to hear what the people think about their mandates or give them direction on their mandates.
So my question is how do you decide what the issue is, with what that process is going to look like? And also, I think it's not, it might be, if we tag this like your voice matters rather than your voice is heard, because people don't feel like my individual voice, how is that going to change things? If this model actually changes things with an individual speaking.
What's that I think by answering that question is that you allow the people within that area, this is where you get the other media centers together, and allow them to say, what concerns do we all have? Number one, you can read your newspaper and you can see what are your biggest headlines. And then you take your 3 biggest headlines and you say, vote on what you would like to talk about within that media. In that media group, and those little circles. It's like states. You almost have to think of it like, you have a state, each city is a state and they have their own issues and they want to discuss their issues. And then they sort of bring into this sort of federal group that say, we're going to discuss this issue and then bring it to the boards that you want to.
Well, I think that what we're looking for is the people's lobby. We have no collective lobbyists. Maybe there's like 3 people lobbying for ACM against, 800 for the big media conglomerates. So how does the people's lobby work? What is the mechanism by which, we come to some kind of consensus that, okay, you heard my voice, I don't 100% agree with this, but I think we all came to consensus and this is how we want to lobby. And because I was heard, I'm a part of this process, I'm now invested. And that way, that's what I think is a really beautiful thing, is that I think we all are aware, social scientists say, that in a true democracy, as long as people feel they have been heard and understood, they will accept majority rule. And they understand fair. We can all get behind fair. I don't agree with that. I wish that plant weren't being built 2 miles away, but I was part of the process by which it wasn't ran down. I drove by, lobbyists. I think I'm rambling now, but I like the idea of, I didn't really understand it until just listening to everybody talking here is, this is an opportunity for people to have a lobby. because
So
of that.
one of the dialogue issues could be, do we need a dialogue process? Do we want everyone to know that we want to use these community channels in a new way, and we want to be able to link together, on Monday nights or whatever,
Yeah.
On Sunday, whatever we decide to have this time to deal with
After
the
lunch,
issues
wow,
that we
whatever
decide.
people-
We
yeah.
pick the issues. We
Yeah.
prioritize the issues. We're gonna start here, we're gonna do this one, we're gonna do that one.
Well, it's ground roots organizing. It's like the 1% people, the 99% people.
Yeah.
What was that?
Well, no, actually, I hear echoes, and I'll be the devil's advocate here for a minute, because I hear echoes of Tea Party and Occupy. So that's where you were going at.
Yeah.
So
So,
it's okay, because there are going to be perception problems. So
Right.
you want to do what?
yeah.
Who's organizing this?
Yeah.
There's a difference between
who's
dialogue
controlling
and
the content?
organizing,
Yeah.
totally different agendas. And
Yeah.
dialogue is, we don't know where this is going. Organizing is, we
Yeah.
have a result we want to get to.
Right.
And
But
I
there could
think
be
what we're
that
talking about, I keep hearing about dialogue, so
Yeah.
I think that's a different process
Well,
altogether. But now the technology might be the same.
Yeah.
You can use the technology either way.
Right, exactly.
But what you really want is dialogue. That's really a delicate thing, which is, I guess, I assume why you want to go to these national groups that specialize, because
Right.
the facilitation of it is extremely delicate, extremely has to be handled carefully. But if I can flash my history for just a second, I'm bad about that. But I had, as part of my fellowship, it was run out of the Highlander Center in outside Knoxville, Tennessee, and their whole process is about dialogue. And even though they had agendas, organizing agendas, they organized agendas for people's health. Okay, and how do we help that, rather than we want to have Obamacare, or
Right.
we don't want to have Obamacare. So it was, how do we empower ourselves to ensure that we will have health care? So the dialogues were around those kinds of issues.
Right.
What's happening in your community? What have you done in your community that's worked? Where have you received opposition from the government, or whatever? And now you hear from another community in here, and all of a sudden now you're learning, oh, there's similar things happening in different communities, have different faces, but when you aggregate that together, there's something, like you said, that arises and a collective wisdom of that. It's like, oh, and then the other piece is that, since empowerment people get that, there are people in different communities working on parallel issues in different ways. So from that point of view, now that's coming temporarily, is that I think you cherry pick who gets involved, at least in terms of FaceTime. And you have a process for other people to come in. Because in order to have meaningful dialogue, it can get really diffused very quickly unless there's some kind of process where you get engaged people are engaged in that particular issue, and you make sure they're part of the process. Then other people can be invited through your open invitation to jump on board. But that's how the juices start to flow. When you have people that are already involved in their dialoguing, then that encourages the other people to dialogue, just like in this room.
But do you think if you're picking and choosing who can speak, that's the
No,
sort of
you're
sense-
inviting people to participate into the process, and you make an open invitation for anyone else who hears about it, through all the outreach you can do through your channels and everything, to, hey, you can be part of this too. But you have to have the catalyst, you have to have a yogurt starter to make it work, and also to focus the discussion,
Well,
That's right.
in my experience.
because I think what ultimately you are is an aggregator of like-minded people.
No,
This-
people working on similar issues, not necessarily like-minded.
Well, I
In fact,
know,
it's
but no,
good to know.
at least they can connect
Yes.
through this vehicle, this platform. Once you hear what this issue was being discussed and say, hey, we want to know about that, at least we can go to the website and, hey, find out who else is.
Okay, I have an example,
Similar.
a quick example of strip money. Of course, I hate strip money. So I got a humanities grant, a long time ago to do, before there were any surface mining laws in Virginia. And what I did was I did a forum with representatives of the Surface Mining Industry Association and environmentalists. They all were interested in the same issue, how much regulation is necessary and what's the balance in economics. That became the topic, not I'm for or against strip mining, because you have one group that was absolutely for, one was absolutely against. Very rich. incredibly rich dialogue. And what came out of it, I think were probably legislation that probably have helped, because a lot of people saw that. So that's why I'm saying you bring these different people working on the same issue, potentially from different points of view.
Well, yeah, that's a good point.
So this is almost branded as dialogue that works, whereas Congress is dialogue that doesn't work.
Exactly. Because it's polarized.
I mean,
Yeah, well, I think, what I'm hearing is, because to get people, everyone has an opinion. All right, once we get the understanding that no matter, everyone has an opinion and we're not gonna all agree on it, but everyone likes to get their opinion out. As soon as you ask them to do something, then they shrink back their opinion. That means they actually have to put their opinion in action. We're not asking the people to put their opinions in action. Basically what's being proposed here is, how do we facilitate people's opinions so it's heard? Once it's heard, they move the people who are supposed to be moving for the people in action, either through, which is basically goes down to many voices are saying, we don't like this, we need you to move, and that goes back down to you're voting by voice. You know what I mean? It's the ayes have it kind of thing. So it's really about how do we get the media centers to facilitate the opinions that get a bag to move.
And handbag. You got handbag?
Yes,
Not handbag.
Yeah, so I guess the thing is it's facilitating the opinion. First you got to get them to start their opinion. Well, like I said, go through each media city and find out what is really connected to them, and they have to sort of facilitate it. The center media, or the one that you guys media center, says this is how you get your group of people to give them your opinion, and this is how this works. Once they collect their opinion in their media center, then you're saying, okay, now we're going to take their opinions and on a particular project, and then we're going to facilitate that through these different channels to create the bigger assembly to go live and be able to talk specifically about that, and then be able to send that to the people who's supposed to go into action. You know, it's really at that point you really just have to figure out the process of how to collect what they want to talk about, get them to talk about it, get them to present it to whatever organization, and then let the organization and see if the organization moves. And if they don't, then you do an update. Well, they didn't move and didn't hear you, and they didn't appreciate your opinion.
Then we get the pitchforks out, and we just go there.
That's what town halls are for. Did you know that?
And it is an iterative process. I mean, I think we want to start small. We want to start with an issue that is, pretty basic, not the most controversial thing in the world, something that people care about, like traffic, like parking, whatever it is. And we want to engage these groups who have a process and see if they're interested in, again, adding this larger dimension of social media, of interactivity, of cable television, so that they can magnify their effectiveness and their reach into the world. And do it in enlarging circles, so that eventually we've got a process that we know works. We've got a group, we've got maybe several groups that we can work with. They get funding. One of the groups I was looking at, they get funding from a lot of different people around the country to look at specific things. One of the issues is immigration that the one group is working on. So I mean, that's a huge California issue. That's a huge Bay Area. So, and the Silicon Valley companies, they'll probably want to help fund something like that because they're interested in being able to bring in the brain power that they need for the jobs that they
Natural
want.
resources. I really do.
So, there are, but I wouldn't want to start with that one. I mean, I want to start small, like I said, and build and build. And make sure that we've got some, and again, we're the platform. We have no agenda. We're working with the experts. We want to make something that is actually going to make the process, the whole democratic process be enriched and effective.
And I think that's why we don't just collect opinions. It's like,
Well, they're always-
it's like,
that's the whole problem.
one of my points is that you want to motivate action and not assume that ABAG or AMBAG or federal government is going to do it for you. They play a role. But what I think ultimately, I mean, my goal would be, I would think, would be to show, to empower people to whatever it takes. You know, whether it's organizing a health clinic in their own community, you know, doing community organizing, or appealing to their comments. There are so many solutions, you see. But the first thing to do is elevate the dialogue so people get the issue, have a sense of empowerment that there's something you can do. And so, the trouble with the town hall meetings, the ones that, because we do it all the time, you know, several months, or things like that, public hearings, there's always an agenda. And what they're looking, and what people go there to shoot down the thing or to build it up. So the developers send their lawyers and their PR people, and the community groups send their most, you know, rabid, you know, anti-development people. And that's what, and it doesn't add anything to the dialogue. All it is people knocking heads, and then city council can count votes. They look at there, they count votes. So that's how they make their
Well,
decisions.
see, that's
And
the
how
important, that's the important process. The important process is that the people get their opinion. If a bag, young bag doesn't move, then because they've already in the same like mind, then they go into, okay, they didn't move, so what action? If we get people into opinion and action, it becomes a pitchfork. You know, a pitchfork. We just want we just want how they feel. How do you feel today? Right? How do you feel about this? Then when they don't move, then you can go into action and say, well, if you're not going to move, we're going to move beyond you because we gave you an opportunity. We gave you an opportunity when we gave you our voice, and you didn't appreciate that. Then you can move into the activist stage, as I call it. But you got to give them that chance first. If you never do, then they say, well, you never gave us an opportunity. All you did was you guys went before us.
Well, I think if somebody goes into activist activity, that's not going to be Bay Voice. Bay Voice is going to be the dialogue process.
Exactly.
And if it turns out that nobody listens, then I think it would be up to whatever the issue
Whatever
is.
community out
Exactly.
there
You know, if
goes
it's an
into action.
environmental issue, then the environmental activist organizations know that there's what the opposition is,
Exactly.
and they'll go do whatever they're going to
And
do.
that is what
can only, you see what I'm saying? So I'm not saying, now trust me, when I say, I'm not saying the government entities are going to do anything. I'm just saying you can't give them an excuse to say why they didn't do anything.
Right.
I'm not saying that groups, specific groups are not going to take on the next step and be activists. I'm not saying that. I'm saying specifically what you're talking about here, because the media center can't be that. All you can do is aggregate the information that flows clearly. The dialogue is helpful and everyone feels satisfied, and then be that platform. And the platform is us distributing through either internet or cable cast, or internet cable cast or radio. If I don't know, what do you guys have?
Well, we're gonna cook the stew first, and then we're gonna aggregate it and deliver it.
And you're gonna stir it up, and then
We're gonna make the soup, and we're gonna put all of our ingredients in, and we're
Right.
gonna come up with a big pot of something.
is that gonna be your dish?
Exactly.
Exactly.
The question I have is, how do you get to this non-vocal majority? Like you're saying at a town hall, you hear these really vocal people
Yeah.
on either ends of a problem, and so how, and maybe these America Speaks and those types of organizations know how to get that voice in the discussion, in the
Well,
debate.
here's the thing, you get in this thing is that you have different types of people who communicate, right? You have the people who are who want to get in the town, who want to be on camera with the mic at the town hall.
Yeah, mic off.
Right.
Yeah.
No, you have
Yeah.
those people, right? People, executives with the mic right off, right? And then you have the people who want to write, right? Especially you got teens and younger who are going to just Twitter the problems, right? They're just going to Twitter and Facebook and be angry. And then you have people who are letter writers, who are going to write the emails, who are going to, So you got to look at, in every one of those aspects, am I fulfilling their distribution quality about themselves? Some people, so if you fill everyone's their need of how they communicate, letter writing, social media, television, radio, whatever, then exactly. If they want to dance and
knows.
exactly, but you fulfill that, then that's how you'll be able to grab the different people who really care about the situation and want to communicate.
Well, and
You
also
gotta
the
give them all
people that think that, I really can't stand these people in their 40s who have never voted, are not registered, that think their voice isn't heard and that nobody cares. There's tons of them out there, and maybe, yes, actually, you're right. One individual person, maybe their vote, but, if those people that didn't vote were brought in, then that actually is inherently a little bit radical, though. So there is actually.
And it may actually get some of them.
That's
Yeah.
putting us in a much more active, proactive role than normal.
That's one of the places where government touches people, where I see a link that has something. And a story behind that, we, it was a proposition a few years back about teaching in Spanish or bilingual education. The author was invited, and it was we were partnering with the League of Women Voters, the Contra Costa Times newspaper, and so we actually did go live with that, and held it at a large venue versus all the studio-based ones that we did, and that was a really interesting one. And we actually did ask people, line up generally if you're in favor, generally opposed to, and it was fascinating. But that aired on our channel, and it had the support because it was a voter education
So,
effort.
And that works, and that's where, that's the kind of thing we need to look at. If we're gonna get government channels to participate in this, how can you help us with the outreach to get people involved?
Right, because the oldest civic engagement here is the vote. So, that's.
so what were your results, and did you have a tangible thing?
Yeah,
that would
well,
push
actually,
the bank?
historically, our county has some of the highest voter turnout rates in the state. Because we've been doing this partnership for years, and it was recently, a few years back documented. It's like, oh, did you think that we had anything to do with that? And I actually had a reporter pause and think about that because they were involved all this time. It's like, oh, yeah, we were a partner in this, weren't we?
Sweet.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Well, again, I think you seed it, and you also have to make it interesting. And occurs to me that I'll always, in my experience with community television and public access, if you're looking for stuff, the more repetition, the better. And the people that are really successful with getting their message out with people that did the grunt work week in and week out in the weekly series. And if, I realize it's a big undertaking, but if, I think this thing could fail if it's not frequent enough. And maybe we need to do a pilot or something, I understand, but ultimately you build momentum. If people knew there was going to be a really juicy dialogue every week, and wouldn't be hours and hours and hours of public hearings, but just, an hour at most, say, coming on every week around issues of substance, and maybe there would be even like monthly cycles. Now we're going to talk about transportation and parking for a month, and then have it from a series of perspectives. Next month we're going to do immigration, and next month we're going to do health of the Bay. We got plenty of topics to go through. I think you build audience, you build interest, especially because things will happen in that process that are very publicizable, that you can maybe would go viral as you leak this out to YouTube. Did you see that exchange, man? Yeah. And the fact that it is regional has an opportunity to really grab some attention. I mean, this is just some of my spontaneous thoughts on, from a programmer's point of view, how to make it work. And that will mean more funding, more effort, more work, and a huge project, but sometimes you need to dream a little bigger. And with the resources of Silicon Valley, I could see a Google or somebody getting behind something like that, YouTube, getting behind something like this, because they're looking for content. The other thought I had on that score, in terms of technology interface, is I don't think this is hard, and I'm not sure Comcast is the way to do it. I think it's just a teleconference from multiple sides with high definition. So it might be Skype, or it might be Adobe conferencing or something.
This is a broadband adoption project.
Where you just put it on, you take that big screen with all those, the centers, and now we're going to go here, and now we're going to go there. And it's just a really well-produced teleconference that's airworthy from technical point of view.
And could the Bay Voice start in Palo Alto, move to Mountain View, move to San Jose, move to Monterey, move to Contra Costa, start small and just move across the Bay Area?
Oh, you mean have it hosted different places?
No, but I mean, it would start, maybe the first episode is just in Palo Alto, you do a good job, and then you can pick up different cities at month by month.
And as one is doing, it's a sort of this ripple effect. As one is working on one subject, the other one's working on the other subject in their particular area. So by the time once you've done it in Palo Alto's town hall kind of thing, then the other one's coming up. You know what I mean? Because they're already working and building it up.
That'd be a great way to distribute the work, wouldn't it? Have different centers do a topic or whatever.
Yeah, unfortunately, it might end up having to be that way. Then others kind of adopt.
Right.
But
it's always still the.
But I think a bigger
branding
coordinated splash is a slightly bigger impact from the get-go. But in the sense of brainstorming and ways of priming the pump, TEDx type talks on a given topic.
Right.
Those trusted voices, the respected speaker, the experts that are seen as neutral or. That's an interesting, because I've always thought that would be the coolest thing, is local TED Talks or the TEDx, the mini TED Talks that you can have in your community.
And the kinds of talks that are happening in our communities anyway, that are on the topics, if we can get those covered and add those into the program just before or after the dialogue.
And that's where academia can get involved.
Go to Stanford, go to Santa Clara, go to,
I think it's very important that the expert voices be curated, so that, because we can all tell when we're being sold bill.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
just kind of
That's
get
my
that
biggest
feeling of there's an agenda here. So, how do you make sure that we do have these, the Dalai Lama of every.
Well, he's controversial too, to a certain
You have a few voices, but you have that moderator instead of then
Shepherd's hook, all of a sudden
Right,
this guy's
exactly.
off. This guy,
Right.
Well, you can do that, but those expert voices again can come from the community, people who have been in the trenches working on these issues. Now, at the same time, having a little sex appeal, as it were, from having someone who can be noted on that issue, whether it's a national, someone in the national administration or something, to lead it, but not to have themselves have an agenda is pretty hard to separate. If you can find that person, it's the best for audience building. We could have Leon Panetta host all of them. How about that? And my race contribution,
Right.
maybe.
But that's a Comcast production.
Well, that institute is looking for this kind of stuff. And
Everybody
that would not be a bad idea. I will give you Sylvia's phone number, okay? And she makes the decision.
It's fascinating that Comcast covers those.
Well,
Their hometown
Comcast,
network.
Covers
all the benefits.
we do that. I mean, we all do it down there.
Okay.
All our arms are twisted. You'll do this again, won't you? I'll show you. No, Comcast donates their services basically, and so they would probably prefer not to financially, but they know they got to do this, and it is good. So that might now. There's a whole network of that though. KQED covers it via satellite. I mean, there's all it's really extended, but that is a national. Those are national issues, and now they always have opposing sides and so forth. It is a dialogue, a debate of a sort. But we're talking about something that's grassroots. But yes, there could be some panache by grassroots like that.
So, I'm just,
We're just talking about how to wrap up here.
Oh, okay.
I know Karen has one more comment too.
Oh my gosh, is it really 5:30? What's happening?
We're having fun, aren't we?
yeah, we are.
We're changing the world.
But, okay, now, is this a type of thing that, you said, because I unfortunately missed like the first 2 minutes, I had to call.
Yeah.
This is something like the Commonwealth Club could conceivably submit a reply to the RFP, because that's kind of what they like to do.
I'm not sure that, yeah.
I don't know. I'm just thinking of, okay, what existing, like the last session has, what existing training material is already there, so you don't have to reinvent the
America
wheel.
Speaks, the Bipartisan Policy Center,
Those trusted intermediates, so who's trusted?
One thing we might want to think about is take it back to what we heard this morning from Joe Smitty, that whatever we do, it has to be at the same time, a time slot everybody knows about. That's consistent throughout the region. Yes, people know to check in,
The programming manager's got to get on board.
Yeah.
Make sure it's programming.
I think it's live, and I think that's actually pretty easy. Assuming you have broadband,
That's the only time appointment television works anymore as well.
Yeah.
That's what the going.
we don't need Comcast to be in the middle of it. It might complicate some ways, although,
Well,
I think we need to, okay, coming out of always, you're at the end, next steps, I think one next step is a technology group to look at the way to get that done. Another one would be a content kind of group to take a lot of these ideas. And then maybe, those two at least I can think of, and I'd be willing to serve on either one of those.
I'm assuming all the media centers can go live
Yeah.
in the Bay Area. That's what I said, I can't see why you could
Well,
not
here's the
go
thing.
live.
So,
At the same time.
Google, if you have a YouTube account, we as nonprofits that have a great platform for Google, can apply for a live YouTube channel.
Yeah, we have.
So you,
yeah.
oh, you do?
Yeah, we have one. That's what I'm saying, but I'm
You
saying,
have all
but
that
just
figured out.
even just the cable
Yeah.
aspect of it.
Yeah.
You guys, I'm trying, the only thing I can do is, I guess I can't figure out why you wouldn't be able to go live and be able to, wherever you're, let's say you're at,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Civic Center, because that's what I know. They're at a Civic Center in one place with one set of cameras,
Well, we're
that it
working
can't
on
be
that.
pushed out to all of the counties.
We're working on that.
So I think that is,
Yeah.
One thing I think of would be if you have public access channel, then you had rigid rules that you couldn't preempt or whatever, because so that was serious thought. But I think we probably could all work through
Yeah.
that.
And we don't have the live YouTube channel yet. So
I think it's government content, and by the way, government channels are most watched channels. I mean, all the statistics say that because people watch city council. So I would put it out on those 3 government channels for sure, and probably on our curated channels, if you have at least 4 channels. Unless there was a city council meeting that week, then I'd have to create it for that, sorry.
So I'd like to just ask for any final thoughts. I'm really inspired by all of your input. I think it's a great idea to have some follow-up committees. I'd love to get involved going forward to look at the content and the technology.
Which committees would you be serving on?
Well, as neutral town hall forums, libraries, people adept at dealing with unpopular free speech, they might be viable partners.
Wow. Yeah, library, yeah.
Who's that?
Libraries, public libraries,
Good partners.
yeah.
The archive,
And the library, yes.
Was someone speaking on archive.org earlier or tomorrow?
heard about it.
There was one earlier today.
Yeah.
But there, that's one.
Yeah, yesterday. they came
So I will, are any wrap up ideas or any
Aaron, are you
final
in?
thoughts?
I just had one question. What y'all talking about?
Are we all going to get on an email list or something
I
for
would love
follow
that.
up?
If you could give me cards, I've got you, Chris, but I don't have.
And so who are you at? What access center are you at?
I'm Martin with Pacific Coast TV.
Well, we're changing the world, Martin, so get on board.
Okay.
Too late.
Yeah.
No, we're already there. We're just waiting on you guys to catch up. What are you talking about?
Where were you?
Gee whiz, I'm just glad you
Dude,
showed
I
up.
gotta take a picture of that wall. Okay, seriously. Wait
I'll email you my email
Okay.
address, okay?
Thanks.
You should take a
a minute, let's see your wallet. I
Yeah.
guess this wallet's in there.
One or two changes to work.
And how long have you
That's
had that
right.
wallet?
One voice.
That's you too.
But it really
All right.
didn't get the worst
Come
a
on.
month
Oh,
ago.
there you go. There you go.
There was
You
a
can be right,
You
unfortunately.
guys,
Watch
You
it.
still use it,
quarterback
like, I
came
like
out of there.
It's like
You're
basically
amazing.
Which one?
stands,
You mean
well,
that
that was
recently?
the opposite, that was a huge wall.
That's,
And I'd
yeah.
like to
Yes,
just
yeah.
formally wrap up the
Okay.
session.
That goes
So,
well.
Aaron,
You
I
prayed
have
too
to
much.
turn off the
Yes, sir.
camera.
You prayed too much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You prayed too much. Yes, for us.